I'm going to start with the top and bottom pieces, our two largest pieces here at the top. And I'm going to show you how to cut these pieces using ordinary, everyday tools that most people have in their homes. There's two ways you can do this. The first one I'm going to show you using a 6-foot level as a straight edge and 2 clamps. Alright, so what I like to do first is measure out the width of our piece. So it's 14 inches. Now we want to figure out the distance from the edge of my circular saw to the side of the blade that's going to cut the waist side of our piece here. So when I measured our 14 inches to here, this is the piece we want to keep, and this is what I mean by the waist side, the side that we're going to cut on. So I put a little X there. And the blade is it needs to run on this side of the line in order to maintain 14 inches. Because the blade usually cuts about the 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch of material out of the piece of wood. So because I want my saw to run on this side, I want the edge of the blade, this side of the blade on the line. Alright, so again, this side of the blade on the line. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to measure from where the edge of the guide is to this side of the edge of the blade. You measure to the tooth. And we have 1 5/8 inches. So 14 plus 1 5/8 is 15 5/8. We make a mark. Now, when I run my circular saw, it should cut on this side of that line. So I'm going to turn it on and just touch the plywood to see where the next thing you want to do, set your blade height so you're only cutting through the plywood that you need to cut through. So if this is 3/4 of an inch, I'll set my blade height to 7/8, 1/8 of an inch more. On each side here, and I know that this edge and this edge are factory edges because I bought 4-foot by 4-foot sheets, and I can always double check them. Alright, no, I guess that one's not. Neither is that one. Yep. I guess you can't trust the factory. Take 7. What, did you guys really think I was gonna cut every single piece with my circular saw when I have a nice table saw? Come on. In all seriousness though, using the circular saw, if that's all you have, is going to obviously take you more time. But if you do it like I showed you and you take your time, it can be more accurate than actually using the table saw that I have anyway. And I actually have a compound miter saw behind me too, but you know, I got the nice tools, I got to use them. Okay, so I have all my pieces cut, and as I cut them, I checked them off on my list, spending that little bit of time up front making the drawing and figuring out all the dimensions, and then from that making our list is key. So here I have all my pieces on the table. They've all been pre-cut. All right, I've marked them per my list. Vent number 1, vent number 2, right side, left side, back, front, bottom, and top. On the vent pieces, we had to, well, we don't have to, but in this case I opted to do the 45-degree angle. So there is vent number 2 I just showed you, and vent number 1. Okay, so like before, we took our vent length from our manufacturer specifications, in this case the Alpine SWS 12-inch subwoofer, dual 4 ohm, and you then make a 45-degree mark on it, and one side is going to be, like we figured before, through the process of elimination, 12 3/4 of an inch, and then we're left with 5 3/4 of an inch. And so you see here's our dimensions, and then there's the 45-degree angle. All right, and like I said before, you have a short point and a long point on your angle. Here, that 5 3/4 of an inch, we measured to the short point of the angle, and on this piece here, which is vent number 1, we measured to the long point of the angle. Okay, so for illustration purposes, you can get that to stand on the end. Yes, from there to the short point of that angle is 5 3/4 of an inch. And just like I did with in the beginning with the straight edge or straight edges, however you prefer to do it, I used my circular saw and I set it to a 45, and if you can see that 45-degree angle right there. All right, there's the blade right there. And on this particular saw, this represents each side of the blade. In this case, we measure to this side, from this side to the end of this table. One of the other pieces that I don't really need for right now, use it as a way to hold this so it's easy to assemble. Some screws, Elmer's wood glue, or screw gun again, and you can just use the screws and the screw gun. I've done it before, but then you have to add more screws, and it means more wood filler and sanding. In my case, Unless you have somebody who has one, you can borrow one. A pneumatic finish gun helps out a lot. All right. There we are. Put the wood glue on. And don't worry about adding too much, because it's better to have too much than not enough. Alright, so I'll just spread this out a little bit. Make sure all the edges of the wood are covered. And the wood glue, very important. Finger, and line up my piece. Make sure that's lined up there good. Good thing about the screws is they will draw it in nice and tight. So that, see the glue squeeze out as I do that? That's what you want. Okay, now, if I didn't have the nail gun, I would add maybe a screw in between these. So we're looking at roughly every 2 inches or so. I'm gonna screw it off. In my case, I'm just gonna. Alright, so I wiped away some of the excess glue for the front. And now, using my drawing, I'm going to assemble the back. It's about 45 degrees in this garage right now, so the wood glue does not want to come out that easy. Make sure all the edge of that wood is covered. Like I said before, don't worry about adding too much. I like to take these little pieces of scrap and wipe the excess glue with them. I don't have to get it 100% because they're just going to sand it off later anyway. So, I'm just going to spread this around, make sure it's, again, you get every square inch of that, because that's key. That's what's going to bond it and create that seal. Also helps any little imperfections. It acts like a shim and fills those gaps in. Then do this with screws too. There are. I will still use screws. I like the screws in the end because everything up really tight. So I went ahead and I assembled the pieces that make up the port internally. There's the 45-degree angle. What I did was I glued them, put them on the table. I shot a couple of nails in them to get it started. And then I screwed 2 of the ends. You'll start to see it slide on the angle. Stop screwing it when that happens, or until it lines up, and then screw it the other way, and you can tighten each side a little at a time until that long point lines up perfectly. And I did that all the way down. Okay. So we have a 1-inch port by 12.5 inches. And in order to make this easy, I went and cut some 1-inch spacers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert these spacers inside, like so, until they line up and we have our 1 inch space. Okay, so first thing I have to do is glue it. So alright, just want to show you the inside of the box. I put the port in and I sealed it up with some white latex caulking. Alright, we're going to cut the hole for the subwoofer, and I'm going to show you how to make your own circle jig. So all I do is I take a piece of scrap wood like this, I drill a hole in one end for the screw, and I drill a hole in the other end to fit the size of my pencil. Alright, so here we are. That hole right there is a 3/8 inch hole. And my circle.